All right, on this particular problem, you're given the function g of x equal x cubed minus x squared plus 2, and it wants us to factor completely over the complex numbers. What we're going to do is we're going to type it into Desmos, and we're going to find that x equal negative 1 is a solution, which means that x plus 1 is going to be a factor. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the value of x, we get x equal negative 1, and we're going to do synthetic division to show what is remaining once we remove the factor x plus 1. So I'm going to, in this particular problem, list my coefficients. I have 1x cubed, negative 1x squared. I have a 0x, so I have to put a 0 in, and I have the number 2. I bring down the first term. I multiply 1 times the divisor, negative 1. I add the 2 together to get negative 2. I multiply negative 1 times negative 2, and it gives me positive 2. I add, and I bring down the 2. I multiply 2 times negative 1, and I'm going to end up with, in this particular problem, negative 2. When I add that, I get a remainder of 0. Therefore, my remaining trinomial is x squared minus 2x plus 2. Now, I look to see if I can factor that. I cannot, because there are no factors of 2 that add up to be negative 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use quadratic formula. And on the quadratic formula, we are plugging in to the formula. So I'm going to have x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And that is over 2a. I plug in, I'm going to get the opposite. This is a, which is 1, b is negative 2, and c is 2. The opposite of b is going to be positive 2 plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2. Okay, and that is over 2 times a, which is going to be 2. I'm doing x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 8 would be the square root of negative 4 over 2. Remember, with the square root of a negative number, that we have to write that as the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 4. The square root of negative 1 is I, and the square root of 4 is 2. So from here, my answer is going to be x is equal to 2 plus or minus 2i over 2. I have to simplify because all of the numbers 2, 2, and 2 are divisible by 2, and that would give me a result of x is equal to 1 plus or minus I. 1 plus or minus I. Therefore, we would have in our answer B as our choice. If I went ahead and broke down, I would have x is equal to 1 plus or minus I. That means x is equal to 1 plus I, or x is equal to 1 minus I. And when I make it a factor, I'm going to have to solve this. So I'm going to subtract 1 plus I from both sides. And that would give me x minus 1 plus I is equal to 0. On the other side, I'm going to subtract 1 minus I from both sides. And I'm going to get x minus 1 minus I is equal to 0. Now, because these are minuses, I am going to go ahead and distribute that negative times this. So I would have negative 1 times 1, which would give me negative 1, and negative 1 times I would be negative I. And same thing on the second, when I distribute that, I'm going to get x minus 1 plus I. Therefore, my factors, remember we had the factor x plus 1 equals 0 from the beginning. My factoring is going to be x plus 1 times x minus 1 minus I times x minus 1 plus I.